Our first witness is Governor Eliot Spitzer of New York. Governor Spitzer was inaugurated as New York's 54th governor in January of this year. Prior to being elected governor, he served for 8 years as New York State Attorney General, where he won national acclaim for protecting investors, consumers, and the environment. Governor Spitzer has made New York a national leader in developing initiatives to combat global warming and promote renewable energy. Welcome, Governor Spitzer. Whenever you're ready, please begin.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I commend you for the critically important work you are doing to confront the threat of global climate change. Let me begin by putting the effects of climate change into real terms from my perspective as governor of New York. Unless we take action now, by the end of the century, New York's countryside will be altered permanently. Changing climatic patterns will push much of our state's agriculture towards collapse. Our abundant fisheries and forest ecosystems will be devastated. And the combined effects of rising sea levels and violent storms will threaten the future of our coastal communities. This is the path we are on. Unless we take bold action now to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, this will be our future. Right now, we find ourselves at a decisive moment. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change predicts that between now and the end of the century, global temperatures will rise between 2 degrees and 11.5 degrees Fahrenheit. That is the difference between climate change that is manageable and climate change that is catastrophic. The difference will be determined not by fate, but by whether or not we can rise to the occasion and make the sensible choices necessary to reduce our own greenhouse gas emissions. We must lead the global community in an effort to reduce emissions worldwide. As part of this effort, I believe that the federal government must follow the state's lead in adopting a cap-and-trade program to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from power plants. Let me briefly describe this effort. Along with 9 other northeastern states, New York has entered a historic cap-and-trade agreement known as the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, or RGGI. In New York, we will cap carbon dioxide emissions from power plants at approximately 64 million tons. The cap will hold steady until 2014, but will then be reduced by 2.5% per year until 2019, resulting in a total reduction of 10%. Under the trade portion of the program, New York will auction allowances to generators. Each allowance will represent 1 ton of carbon dioxide. Generators will be able to buy and sell allowances in a secondary market. Generators that obtain more allowances than their actual emissions will be allowed to sell their excess allowances, and those who are short must buy allowances. Our draft regulations for the entire program were published on October 24th and are now out for public comment. We expect permanent regulations to be in place by the spring of 2008. We hope that RGGI will ultimately serve as a model for national or international cap-and-trade programs to reduce emissions from power plants, which account for 40% of all greenhouse gas emissions nationally. In anticipation of launching RGGI, New York has aggressively pursued energy efficiency and renewable energy policies. With regard to energy efficiency, we are implementing what we call the 15 by 15 plan to decrease the demand for power by 15% from forecasted levels through efforts to increase energy efficiency. And with regard to renewable energy, New York has adopted a renewable portfolio standard that requires at least 25% of electricity used in New York State to be produced by clean, renewable resources by 2013. Both programs will be supported by the RGGI auction revenue. There is another critical component in our strategy to both address the threat of global climate change as well as meet our energy needs. Government has the responsibility and obligation to help develop cleaner ways to generate energy if at the same time we impose new and stricter environmental standards. That is why New York State is actively researching the viability of carbon capture and sequestration in New York. We believe this technology holds tremendous promise in our fight against climate change and strongly urge the federal government to increase its focus and funding on this effort. Taken together, these efforts will ensure that New York will achieve the RGGI cap while also meeting our energy needs. Once again, I strongly urge the federal government to follow the lead of the states in developing a nationwide strategy to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, a strategy that should include a cap-and-trade program to reduce emissions from power plants, as well as incentives for energy efficiency, renewable energy, and carbon sequestration. The government of New York State looks forward to working with you at the federal level to make this happen. We will stand with you and assist you in any way that is needed. Thank you, and I look forward to answering your more detailed questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor, very much.